In the small town of Ijegun, Lagos, a boy named Ton lived with his grandmother. She always told him, "Don't leave your slippers outside at night before going to bed." But Ton never listened. He thought it was just an old woman's tale. One evening, after playing football with his friends, Ton was too tired to bring his slippers inside. He kicked them off at the doorstep and went to sleep. The next morning, Ton woke up and ran outside. But his slippers were gone. He looked under the bench, behind the door, and even in the small garden. Nothing. "Grandma, my slippers are missing," he cried. His grandmother shook her head. "I warned you, Ton. Things happen at night when you leave your slippers outside." Ton didn't understand. Who would steal a pair of old slippers? Ton decided to find out what happened. He saw small muddy footprints near the doorstep. The prints looked like they belonged to a goat, but something was strange. They were glowing faintly in the sunlight. He followed them down the street, past Mama Chichi's shop, past the well, and into the thick bushes near the river. As he moved closer, Ton heard whispers. Peeking through the bushes, he saw something shocking. A group of tiny creatures, no taller than his knee, were sitting in a circle. And in the middle, his slippers. The creatures had big round eyes, sharp teeth, and long ears. Their skin shimmered like tree bark in the moonlight. One of them, the tallest, held up Ton's slippers. "These human shoes are powerful. We must take them to the king of the night." Ton gasped. Who was the king of the night? And why did they need his slippers? Suddenly, a strong wind blew through the trees. The creatures froze. A deep voice echoed from the darkness, "Who dares to disturb my plans?" A huge shadow rose from behind the trees. It had glowing red eyes and a long black robe. The king of the night had arrived. Ton's heart pounded. He wanted to run, but his legs refused to move. The tiny creatures turned to the shadowy figure and bowed. "Your Majesty, we have brought the slippers," the tallest creature said, lifting Ton's slippers high. The king of the night stepped closer. His robe moved like smoke, and his red eyes glowed. He took the slippers, held them up, and sniffed them. Yes, these belonged to a child. They carried the scent of laughter, dreams, and mischief. Perfect for my collection. Ton's eyes widened. Collection. Did this mean the king had taken other children's things too? Suddenly, one of the creatures sniffed the air. It turned sharply and pointed. "Someone is watching us." Before Ton could move, two of the tiny creatures jumped on him. "We caught a boy. We caught a boy," they sang. Ton kicked and struggled, but the creatures were stronger than they looked. They dragged him into their circle. The king of the night leaned closer. "A brave one, aren't you?" His voice was deep, like thunder before a storm. "Tell me, child, why did you follow us?" Ton gulped. He didn't know what to say. I just wanted my slippers back," he finally blurted out. The tiny creatures laughed. The king of the night smirked. "You should have listened to your grandmother." Ton frowned. "Why do you want my slippers?" "They are just old shoes." The king's eyes gleamed. "Not just shoes, boy. Everything a child wears or touches carries a part of their energy, joy, dreams, even fears. I take these things to grow stronger." Ton felt a chill down his spine. Did this mean the king had been stealing from children for years? Ton knew he had to act fast. He glanced at his slippers in the king's hands. If only he could grab them and run. Then he remembered something his grandmother always said: "Darkness fears laughter." Ton took a deep breath and laughed. He laughed as loud as he could. A big, fearless, belly-shaking laugh. The tiny creatures covered their ears, wincing. The king of the night hissed. "Stop that. But Ton kept laughing. The air around them trembled. The king's shadow flickered. The creatures fell to the ground, groaning. Ton saw his chance. He grabbed his slippers and ran. Behind him, the king roared, "Catch him!" The tiny creatures scrambled to their feet and dashed after Ton. They were fast, but Ton was faster. He jumped over roots, dodged branches, and raced toward town. His lungs burned, but he didn't stop. He had to get home. The creatures were gaining on him. Their tiny feet pounded the ground like drumbeats. Then, just ahead, he saw the well near Mama Chichi's shop. An idea flashed in his mind. Ton reached the well and stopped. He turned to face the chasing creatures. "Come and get me," he shouted. The creatures lunged at him, just as Ton dodged to the side. Splash! The first creature fell into the well. The others skidded to a stop, but Ton quickly grabbed a bucket and threw water at them. The moment the water touched them, they screamed and vanished into thin air. Ton's eyes widened. Water could defeat them. The king of the night stood at the edge of the forest, watching. His red eyes glowed with anger. "This is not over, boy." But he didn't step forward. The town was waking up. The sun was rising. And the king of the night could only rule in darkness. With a final glare, he disappeared into the trees. Breathing hard, Ton ran back home. His grandmother was already outside, sweeping the yard. "Ton, where have you been?" she asked. Ton held up his slippers. "Grandma, I'll never leave them outside again." His grandmother smiled knowingly. "Good boy." That night, Ton placed his slippers neatly inside before going to bed. And from that day on, he always listened to his grandmother's advice. Because in Ajgan, Lagos, the children knew one thing for sure: never leave your slippers outside at night.